Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. And if we're being honest, please, I don't want to hear about looting. I don't want to hear about rioting in the streets. I don't want to hear about what these people have forced because they didn't force anything. They were at work. They were standing outside the Home Depot waiting for work. These people who are being disappeared off of our streets are our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. And until we start seeing each other as Americans and as brothers and sisters, folks, we're going to continue to live under this fascist authoritarian regime. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Brock Ganeles. Brock, always a pleasure to see you. It's too late. We're there. We're in a fascist society right now. Pete Hegseth has said that he has deployed the Marines to go after American citizens on American soil. What the actual fuck?
So, have you seen footage yet? Have the Marines actually hit the street as yet? Have they been
not.
deployed?
I haven't seen it.
haven't seen it yet.
Right.
And I wonder where they're,
Yeah.
where they're staying as well. We know, I mean, our economy is built on cheap labor, right? It started with slavery and it's worked its way through, right? So there's always been the need for zero to low wage employment. And that is why this group of people has migrated to this country, because the opportunity that exists here, both safety and economically, is better than their home country.
Sure.
So the reason there's people sitting outside the Home Depot is because there's a demand for that labor, and that's allowed for real estate businesses to be more profitable, and it's fueled the machine. Oh, the machine that is the strongest economic machine in the world, for which all this global trade and internationalism has accrued massive benefits. So all these things that Trump and Project 2025 wants to have all benefited Americans, and in an unequal way, certainly has accrued huge wealth to the ownership society, people at the top, the business owners. So the whole premise of the deportations to start with has been a fraud. And it's just been highlighted in Los Angeles because of who was getting, quote, snatched, and how absurd it is. They're just not finding criminals. That's the bottom line. They're finding people that are here to work and make some money and send it home. And they're only here as long as the work is here. And the work is here because we have the strongest economy in the world and we want to keep growing it. And God, do business owners love low-wage workers that they don't have to pay any benefits to.
Absolutely.
And we're painting them as the bad guys.
I want to remind and I want to remind you that black people didn't get lazy in America until they stopped working for free. So once they wanted to be paid for their labor, all of a sudden they got a lazy label. But that's here nor there. That's past history.
Yeah, they were certainly worth a lot
when
they were.
And what we have now is an us and them society, right? It's us, and them. Right? The them being white America, comfy and cozy, 10 times the wealth of the median black family. And I'm not sure what it is of the median Latino family, but the Latino families have carved out some really nice niches and some really nice opportunities for themselves. You got to tip your hat to it. Think about who does the lawns, who does a lot of the roofing, who's doing a lot of the construction, framing, basement work. A good handyman, Brock, can make $500 a day. Do the math on that. That's a good month's earnings. Think about where we're going with this thing and what the end goal is, because I can't figure out where they're trying to go. If you want to deport 3,000 people a day, I mean, the math ain't mathing. You're not going to continue to be able to work these garment shops and to be able to work these farms and to be able to do all the things that are necessary for us to maintain our current standard of living. And just like divorces, You got to keep us at our current, our same standard of living, or else somebody's got to pay.
I've been thinking a lot about like what Trump's trying to get out of this, right? And I kind of think I'm starting to come to the thinking that it's a little bit twofold. There's Project 2025 and the Stephen Millers of the world who are the zealots, right? The hardcore xenophobic racists who, they're the white supremacy, thinkers behind this. So they want deportation numbers, right? So yeah, they've created a fraudulent reason we're going for criminals, but they're just trying to whiten America, right? There's that contingent. And then there's Trump, who needs the adulation and who needs to win the media for the day. And I'm kind of coming around to the thinking of that. Trump needs a win because he's not winning anywhere. He didn't win in his head-to-head Twitter war with Elon Musk, right? At best, it was a draw. Both look like idiots. He didn't win on any of his international tariff battles. Like, everyone stood him down one at a time, right? That became a fiasco that continues to unfold. He hasn't won in Gaza because that's just a mess, and he doesn't even talk about it anymore since all he wants is a golf course there. And he's looked like a total buffoon and weak in the Ukraine-Russia war because he cozies up to Putin, but then Putin just stiff arms him and makes him look like a chump. And so we're not supporting Zelensky. And he looks like, a puppy dog around Putin. So he's kind of stayed away from that conflict now because he didn't win by bullying Zelensky in the Oval Office and all that. So he's got no wins, right? He's just losing everywhere. Stock market's down. He has no wins. So he has to go to the base level. He has to go to the racism. He has to punch down. He needs a fight. So he has an army. So he can use the army, right? Gavin Newsom doesn't have an army. There's no force to fight against, right? So he needs an unequal scenario. He needs a win. That's my thesis now. So he's going to declare victory in LA no matter the outcome, right? So he's just going to keep throwing troops at it till he can say he won and he kind of, is the king of America now, right? Because he's lost everywhere else.
Right.
What do you think of that?
Right.
What do you think of that thesis?
I mean, I like it, but again, he's talking about doubling troops now. How can he win in that situation? You got 4,000 troops out there. Let's say they arrive within the next couple days or day or so. You got 4,000 troops out there against a few thousand Los Angelinos. Like, what do you expect to happen? These guys are armed to the hilt with equipment, tanks, heavy trucks, the police backing them up, fire department trucks on standby for injuries. Like, I don't understand, how this is a win for him in any situation. And God forbid something happens and one of these guardsmen are severely injured, or God forbid one of them is killed. Right? Because how do you call that person's family and say, yeah, I appreciate your husband's service who was killed because we were snatching people off the street and we needed other people to help us do that because these people didn't like it. Like, there's no explaining that away, Brock. You cannot comfort that widow. There's no winning there, in my estimation, especially someone who's dealing with a fact-based understanding of what is actually happening in Los Angeles right now.
Yeah, Trump doesn't care about the troops. That's why, I was watching that Fort Bragg speech he's giving today for some reason or another. And, the troops are cheering. And I'm just like, it's kind of like you guys are played. I'm glad you're enthusiastic about America and your role. I applaud the fact that you're going to put your lives on the line for the rest of us, for our freedoms. But the guy standing in front of you, speaking in front of you, doesn't give a shit about you, considers you suckers and losers. He'll put you in lousy situations. It's not a surprise that you're sleeping on the floor because no one in the administration thought to plan like where you're going to stay and eat and any kind of level of comfort after you're out there risking your life all afternoon.
Right.
I don't think Trump cares about consoling anyone, right? That would require just empathy for other human beings, and he just doesn't have it. It's
Not
only going
capable.
to be what comes back to him. So I
Right.
do think he's ultimately going to view this as a victory, which is Trump's 4,000 National Guardsmen and 800 Marines, quote, conquered the lawlessness of Los Angeles and embarrassed Gavin Newsom, who, like, quote, can't control his people. So Trump had to go in there, crack some heads, and bring law and order. And he's making America safe for everyone. And can't you see how tough he is and strong he is? I mean, that has to be the play.
Right. It makes no sense,
And it's
Brock.
white people against brown people, right? Like, it's brown people, right? So that makes it easier for him to message, because he's messaging to a white America that, like, deep down agrees with him, sadly.
Well, and think about it. It gets back to the whole why don't you comply thing? Why didn't he just comply? Right? Why don't these brown people just comply? Right? I don't understand why white America can't see what's wrong here. Why white America can't see, 244 years of free labor, which has set you up for a decade, for a couple centuries of success, right? Like, why can't we understand the practical application and inferences that the historical context gives us, and say, well, you know what? I kind of get that, right? And I kind of get why you would be upset. And see, right now, like I was saying yesterday, the Black and Latino communities are so fractured. Tabitha Speaks Politics. Remember, I turned you on to her not long ago.
Yeah, yeah.
She was talking about the very same thing this morning, and a young lady had come on, a Hispanic lady who came on and said, hey, where's our help? How come people aren't helping us? Tabitha went back to her page and said, young lady, take several seats. We have been fighting for decades, right? Where have you been? I went back and looked at your page. You're doing voiceovers. You're doing, funny shticks on TikTok. You're not talking about the struggle. You're not talking about the plight of the Black American. Now, Latinos are under the gun. The Hispanic community is under the gun. The heat is on like nobody's business. And you want help. You want everybody to come to the firing line. But where were you when we needed you? And so that's going to be your divide, right? Now, remember, I mean, Rodney King is not that long ago. The LA riots is not that long ago. It's our lifetime, right? As young adults. And I remember one of our classmates saying, well, Mark, he must have done something for them to beat him like that. Whoa, fella, read a book, okay? They beat you like that back in the day during slavery for not working hard enough, for refusing to be broken as a buck, right? The beatings were part of instilling discipline, which still echoes in the Black community. So that's why we have this divide, because where was the help when we needed you during the civil rights struggle, during the tumultuous 70s, during the murders of the Black Panthers and the activists in the late 60s, early 70s, after the murder of Dr. King, after the slaying of Malcolm X and countless others, during the lynchings in the South, right? Like, I don't have to, you understand all this, but Brock, there are obviously people out there that don't. Our Hispanic, Latino brothers and sisters do not understand the history of the Black experience in America.
Yeah,
And they
Mark,
need
I'm
to
sorry.
realize.
We
No,
even
go
get
ahead.
a little bit of this on the comments on our page, on the YouTube page, of
Yes.
Black people coming on and saying no. And some of those comments went a step further, which is, Laura, where were you in November of last year when in the voting booth? Like, there is a resentment that the Latino vote, the Latinas for Trump, and all that chatter
Right.
about, oh, well, he's good for our businesses, he's good for small business, and we're looking at the economic side of things, not the social side of things. And they got played, but yeah, there's a resentment even how they voted in this election and
Absolutely.
past elections. Like,
And Black America is saying, we tried to tell you, but you didn't want to listen to us. And again, Context is everything, right? People in the Northeast, hey, in Donald Trump's voting district in 2016, he got 10% of the vote. Where he lives, the people that know him best, they were like, we don't fuck with that dude.
Yeah. Fuck.
We don't like
That's why
that
he moved.
dude.
That's why he moved.
You damn right. You damn right. Because he needs the adulation, the praise, right? The therefore wherefore art thou king? Fuck you, man. People in New York are sticking their middle finger up when that dude drives by, right? Throwing shit at Trump Tower. So, look, I genuinely feel bad that the Latino community got played. Again, we tried to tell you, but now, there is nothing left to do except get out here in numbers, right? Show of force in numbers and see if we can get because if well-meaning white folks get out there and well-meaning white folks come to the black community, well-meaning Latinos come to the black community, we'll come with you, I think. I really do think, because we know that it's been far too long for the racial reckoning in this country. It's taken far too long for it to happen, and it's now taken a white supremacist for us to get the conversation started.
Yeah, and hopefully
the
to bring it together.
conversation isn't started.
My issue is that the left is siloed, right? And it's like a third
Right.
black people are still disillusioned, as you tell me. A third Latinos now who are absolutely feel, quote, bamboozled, right? And now are out on the streets with kind of almost no one else with them, right? Black people aren't with them. White people are still too complacent to be out there with them in any large numbers. So they're out there alone. Now, maybe they'll digest this scenario and do some outreach also and be a part of galvanizing the opposition. But Trump's winning easily because he has a fractured opposition. And if we actually came together, we would overwhelm him in the numbers. But he has a fractured opposition, and he's in the seat of power, so he can still be performing terribly,
Right.
but still be winning, because
Right.
in essence he's playing a poor opponent, or a shitty opponent right now. We're a shitty opponent. We're a fractured opponent. We haven't come together. No one's stitched it together. I guess it's great that the Latino community has had their wake up call. When does complacent white America get their wake up call?
I don't know. Maybe if their
Medicaid
401k
cuts,
runs dry.
Medicare cuts. You know that at the protest I was at 2 months ago, it was a lot of old people with those. Don't touch my Medicare. Don't touch my Social Security. Don't touch. Right. It was Medicare and Social Security. Right. It wasn't people on Medicaid. Right. It was a wealthy group walking down Fifth Avenue. Right. They weren't worried about Medicaid.
No.
They're all taken care of. Right. But their Social Security and their Medicare mattered.
Right. And
Is it money? Is it got to
remember,
be pocketbook for the white people?
I think so. And healthcare. Because remember, a really good sickness, a cancer, right? A stroke, I mean, that can get expensive, right? And I know when my dad was dealing with cancer, he had great insurance, New York State pension, health insurance in addition to Medicare. And there was stuff, we wanted to do and couldn't necessarily afford, like take an ambulance, from Atlanta to Jacksonville to go to a Mayo Clinic for, another opinion.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. So, that's a $10,000 ride from Atlanta to Jacksonville, Florida. It's, 6 hours, but it's 10 grand in an ambulance, right? With the kind of medical care that he was needing at the time. So a good sickness, will have people starting to look around and say, what the fuck? I'm not ready to go yet. I still got more life to live. If I can get the right health care, I can stick around for a few more years and see my grandchildren grow and see my children develop into really good human beings and be able to have more time with my family and my wife and the things that really matter, right? Because, Brock, in the end, the money that these billionaires is going to get is not buying them more time. Doesn't buy them more time on this planet. I don't care how good their health care is, right? Nobody's sticking around for 150, 200 years like Ricky Bobby thought he could in Talladega Nights. So, I just, it's frustrating to see us so splintered. Again, I don't get it because I wasn't raised that way. You weren't raised that way. And so I don't understand, you become so hateful, and I'm talking about MAGA, and I'm talking about black, I'm talking about Hispanic, Latino, how you become, angry with something that you don't understand and you don't know much about. Because that's always
Yeah, Mark, I get it. I wasn't raised that way, but I wasn't out there fighting for black voting rights against voter suppression, and I wasn't out there fighting for DEI initiatives in an earnest way, right? I agreed with the issues. I voted that way, but it's not something that I fought for. It's taken Trump to it's like taking Trump to turn me even into a political fighter versus
right.
like a political
But think
someone who's
about it.
active politically, right? To someone who's out there now and who's like, you know,
But think
so
about it,
I'll
Brock.
put myself in that camp, right? A complacent white person. Now I feel like I'm less complacent than most white people, and I'm trying to drag those other complacent people,
Right.
into at least into the discussion, if not into the fight. I mean,
No
hopefully
doubt.
into the fight. And I think all white people have to do that with each other is
Right.
get more and more of each other truly engaged.
Aged. Right.
Which is why Saturday's an interesting, going to be an interesting day because white people are fired up about Saturday. I think white people numbers at these marches is going to be really, really big.
I
I don't
do
know if
too.
any black people are going to be out there. I think it's still going to be zero, and I wonder if it's going to if it's going to be more Latino people because it's going to give them an option throughout the country to
Yeah.
go to something, and there's going to be maybe a lot of placards out there about ICE,
Right.
and maybe we're going to get a white and Latino togetherness
Yep.
on Saturday, and it would at least have 2/3 of the puzzle pieced together. Now that I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for at least that the fractional coalesces a little bit on Saturday. I like the timing of these LA protests relative to
Perfect.
all these, No Kings protests that are
Scheduled for
scheduled for
Saturday.
Saturday, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of them. And I saw Ezra Klein interviewed last night, who's like organizing a lot of it, and like
Yeah.
they think they have like 180 or 200 of these
Yeah. They're
scheduled.
they're going to be huge. But Brock, going back to your earlier point just a moment ago, where you talked about the complacency, we were all a little complacent because we believed in the idea of our republic, right? Did you ever think that voting rights would come under, fire again after all that was sacrificed in the 60s up to
No,
1965 when the Voting Rights Act, who knew
absolutely not.
that it expired? Who knew
Roe
that
v.
we
Wade,
had,
Roe v. Wade too, right? They're just
who
certain things like
knew?
absolutely were tucked away, right? Those
Right,
battles had been won. Like, what's the
right.
next thing?
Right. And even these Supreme Court justices going on to the court lied and said it was settled case law. Dobbs is settled, right? This stuff is all settled case law. And they lied, and the first chance they got, they overturned it. Who thought that would happen? Right? Nobody. Right? And so, and then we're out here now saying, oh my God, look at how successful the Republican Party has been with voter suppression, right? And turning people away. It's illegal in Georgia to give people water standing in a voting line, right? But the voting lines are that long and it's that hot because of the way that you have set up our precincts, right? Like who would have thunk in 2025 the only way Republicans could win is through voter suppression and keeping people away from the polls and making it harder for them to,
Yep.
to vote. What are we going to go back to the poll tax and these archaic, ways of count the M&Ms in the jar type things, right? So yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy. Herbe, we're just wrapping things up here.